What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, and a stimulus check update. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks for hitting the like button for us down below. There is a new deal that has been reached here on the baby formula shortage. Check this out.
The national baby formula shortage is getting worse in some states. The FDA is continuing to investigate how it got so bad in the first place. The commissioner says the agency will look into why it took months to send inspectors to that Abbott Nutrition baby formula plant in Michigan. Today, Abbott announcing it's now reached an agreement with the FDA on what they're calling a pathway to reopening that Michigan plant. After FDA approval, the plant could reopen with 2 weeks. Abbott reports it would then take at least 6 weeks for consumers to start seeing more formula on the shelves. So that's 2 months at best. Last week, 43% of baby formula supplies were out of stock at stores across America. That's data from Data Assembly. As the FDA is stepping up its efforts, the White House is promising to help struggling families get what they need. CNBC's Valerie Castro joins us now. Valerie?
Shep, the Justice Department filed a complaint today along with a proposed consent decree between the FDA and Abbott Laboratories. It would allow manufacturing to resume at that Michigan plant with some stipulations. Abbott will have to bring in outside expert assistance to ensure safety compliance, and there will also be new testing requirements, and the company must promptly notify the FDA of any contamination.
Tonight, parents around the country hoping for better news as trips to the store in search of baby formula become an exercise in futility.
We go to buy formula, everything is gone.
The shelves are completely bare.
The FDA commissioner saying this morning there may be relief in sight while dispelling fears the problem could linger.
We don't expect it to last to the end of the year by any means. We're taking a number of measures, including getting all the manufacturers to step up, getting the Sturgis plant up and going.
The Sturgis, Michigan plant, operated by Abbott Nutrition, shut down in February after concerns over bacterial infections reported in 4 infants. The halt in production there, a blow to an industry with just 4 companies producing 90% of formula in the U.S.
It's basically a series of monopolies that have added up into enormous market concentration.
Transportation Secretary and father to 2 infants, Pete Buttigieg, placing the blame on Abbott Nutrition.
A company which, by the way, seems to have 40% market share, messed up and is unable to confirm that a major plant, is safe and free of contamination.
In a statement last week, Abbott said it was, quote, implementing corrective actions and subject to FDA approval, we could restart our Sturgis, Michigan site within 2 weeks.
Of course, Abbott is responsible for the timeline, but I'm very comfortable with what they said about 2 weeks.
Meanwhile, a White House official says talks are ongoing with the 4 major manufacturers, Reckitt, Abbott, Nestle Gerber, and Perrigo, to help resolve logistical hurdles, expand the amount of approved formula being imported, and working with major retailers to bring more formula to areas of the country with critically low supply.
There is a lot of supply abroad, but we want to make sure that when we bring it here, that it is supply that meets the FDA's rigorous standards.
Congress is also expected to take legislative action this week to address the shortage. Today, the FDA said it will encourage overseas manufacturers to ship formula to the U.S. The White House says the FDA will prioritize applications that are most likely to be successful to get formula on store shelves as quickly as possible.
Yeah, speaking about babies and children, here's what Senator Bernie Sanders has some interesting commentary about them and the child tax credit checks. Check this out here.
I do find it somewhat amusing that the loudest voices in the Republican Party that demanding that women be forced to give birth against their will are exactly the same people who oppose virtually every effort here in Congress designed to improve life for children and their mothers. These same Republicans, without exception, are opposed to extending the $300 a month child tax credit that expired in December. They literally believe that it is acceptable for an employer to force a mother to go back to her job a week after giving birth. So my Republican colleagues want women, regardless of what they believe, to have a baby, but they could care less about those babies once they are born. The issue we are discussing tonight is often framed as a woman's issue. I disagree. This is a human rights issue. And if there has ever been a time in American history when the men of this country must stand with the women of this country, this is that moment.
So it's interesting what Bernie Sanders picked up on there. I find it interesting the way he comments on this, and you can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. But what Senator Bernie Sanders is kind of picked up on there is Republicans want to almost unanimously in Congress, they actually voted on this to codify Roe versus Wade, and all the Republicans voted no. So all the Republicans voted to not vote Roe versus Wade into law. So basically, they want to not give the woman the choice whether or not she could have an abortion. Okay. So basically, the states, the government would have the right to be able to choose whether or not abortion would be legal. So the government would have the choice, not a woman over her own body. Okay. So the government would be able to choose whether or not what is right for a woman, not a woman herself. Okay. Whether or not you have medical issues or not, no matter what the circumstances, whether or not it's dangerous for a woman, no matter what the circumstances are, a state could force a woman to have a baby. Okay. And this could actually happen here very, very soon. Okay. But then, so the state could force a woman to have a baby, but then the Republicans don't want to pass the child tax credits. Because remember, when this passed in the House, not a single Republican voted yes on that bill to pass the child tax credits. Okay. It's already been voted on. Not a single Republican voted yes to pass the child tax credits, which would be $300 per month for children under the age of 6 and $250 per month for children over the age of 6. Okay. So what Bernie Sanders is saying there is that Republicans want to force women to have a baby based on their votes that have already happened and not have a choice. But when the baby is born, they don't want to help support them. And this is what Bernie Sanders has said, and this is what Republicans has already voted on. So you can let me know your thoughts here. It's interesting that he's picked up on this. You kind of have to think all this through. But let me know your thoughts here in the comments. It's kind of crazy. Now I know that there's a lot of different opinions on this. Definitely a lot of different opinions on this. There is at least a few Republicans, led by Republican Senator Mitt Romney, on the child tax credits. Mitt Romney has a bill on the child tax credits that has not passed yet. It has a few Republicans with Republican support for the child tax credits. Whether or not there's enough to pass it has not yet happened. But it does have work requirements on it, which would. Here's a previous article about this because Joe Manchin and Republican Senator Mitt Romney's their ideas and essentially their bill are almost identical. So Joe Manchin and Republican Senator Mitt Romney's child tax credit changes, which have a work requirement, could prevent more than 37 million children from getting aid. Now, whether or not this is the right decision or not to have a work requirement, again, a lot of people are on the fence here. The problem with this is 37 million children not getting aid, not getting the payments, and thus 37 million children potentially going hungry. I guess that's the problem I have with it. The other problem I have with it is that um, the theory that we've talked about before is putting everybody in a broad box, painting with a broad picture. Not everybody can work. Not everybody is quote able-bodied. Um, there's people that are disabled. There's people that are retired. There's people that are on Social Security. There's people that are raising their grandchildren, grandmas and grandpas that are on Social Security, that have already worked for 30 or 40 years, that they're in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, and are raising the children. And those children would not get the child tax credits and would be excluded. Think about all the disabled people. Think about all these different situations that are included in that 37 million children that would be excluded um, by these changes. 37 million people. So that's the problem. I get the theory that if you're able-bodied, you should work. I actually agree with that. That if you're able-bodied, you should work. In theory, that sounds like a good theory, right? Um, the problem with able-bodied is how does the government decide who's able-bodied? Yeah, so it kind of goes back with the whole if you've ever seen where um, they've talked about in theory before drug testing in certain situations, like drug testing to get benefits, and they've actually come up with the thought that it actually would cost more money to drug test than it would save the government or states. If you've ever seen, sometimes they've come up with that idea or that result that it would actually cost the state more money to drug test everybody. So, for example, if they put a drug test requirement, and I'm just saying this in general. I haven't done the research or anything like this, but for example, if they put a drug test requirement on everybody to get the child tax credits, it could actually cost the government more money to do a monthly drug test than to actually send out the child tax credits. Just to, again, when you start painting with a broad picture like that, sometimes those ideas are not that great. So that's the problem here with, and that'd be like saying, okay, we want to send out stimulus checks to everybody, but we're going to drug test the whole country before we send out the stimulus checks. Like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but can you imagine the cost of sending a drug test to the entire country? Yeah, so that's the problem here with like sometimes like good ideas not that great in implementing, right? And the other problem with the whole earned income thing is that like why is Social Security not earned income? If you've worked your whole life and you get Social Security, you've already earned that income. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. If you've worked your whole life and earned Social Security, I don't know. You let me know your thoughts on that. But yeah, so there's a really big problem with a lot of this. Social Security is in need of a raise so badly, more than the cost of living adjustments. And Social Security is in need for an overhaul so badly that they're going to have to do something. That they're going to have to figure out something. The problem is that they're going to have to get. Well, they're not necessarily going to have to get, but why we don't get any Republican support on Social Security raises and Social Security like overhaul. That's something we really need to get. I'm surprised that we don't get more Republican support on Social Security overhaul, Social Security raises, readjusting the Social Security system. I mean, when you think about like we spend $800 billion a year on defense of our country, we need to spend money on Social Security and overhaul the system, especially now that we're going to be having a $1.5 trillion deficit reduction because of new tax money coming in. Unemployment is so low right now. We're around 3.5, 3.6%, and retail sales are doing good. So basically, a lot of people have gone back to work and are spending money now. The people that are, it's a K-shaped recovery. So some people are doing good going back to work, but they're still the middle lower class are still really struggling right now, and inflation's taking hold of a lot of people. But the people that are going back to jobs and got money are spending, and the government's taking in a lot of revenue right now. So they need to use that revenue that they're taking in and overhaul some of these programs like Social Security, the child tax credits, which took millions of children out of poverty. They're going to potentially overhaul the student loan program, the student loan forgiveness program, which they've kind of actually done the last couple years with pausing the payments. That has been a tremendous help to the over 40 million people that have student loans. I mean, think about it. They haven't had to pay their payments for over 2 years. The average payment for student loans is around $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year. So just imagine paying that $5,000 a year. It's around $400 a month or so average. You think about that, times 12 months. And when those payments restart back up, because at some point, they're going to have to. That's just such a burden for so many people. Over 40 million people have student loans. Yeah, it's crazy. And a lot of people weren't even able to get a degree. They weren't able to finish for whatever reason. And you got to really think about that. It's just such a burden on so many people. A lot of people end up paying on their student loans for decades. And think about if they didn't even get a degree out of it. Or think about if just life happened and they weren't even able to use the degree or something like that. So there's really it's like having a mortgage but not getting a home out of it. Yeah. So there's really a lot of different programs that need to be overhauled in the United States. Social Security program, the Child Tax Credit program, um, the student loan program. There's so many programs, and the problem now is interest rates are creeping up because of inflation, and the Fed has to kind of bring down inflation, and interest rates could be high for a couple years here. I really don't think that inflation, or I'm sorry, that interest rates will stay high, just because I kind of study this stuff, and I think interest rates could stay high for a couple years. But I think it's doubtful that interest rates will stay high for a long time, especially because the government has to pay interest on on their interest. Government has to pay interest on their debt. So I think it's likely that interest rates could stay high for a couple years and then drift back down because, well, the government's paying interest on trillions of dollars of debt. So it'd probably stay high for a couple years, maybe 2 years, and then start to drift down would probably be my guess. But yeah, there's just a lot of programs that need overhauled, that need reworked. And like the and remember, they're going to have that SNAP conference here in a couple months, and hopefully they rework that. And hopefully, remember they did the 25% permanent raise, which was a good start to SNAP for people that get decent benefits. But for people that only get like $20 a month, that that really didn't help. But what they need to do is, I think they need to raise the eligibility limits. They need to get rid of or have inflation adjustments to the SNAP benefits, the food stamp benefits, so that COLA raises for Social Security don't happen. Or they raise when you get a COLA, cost of living adjustment for Social Security, your SNAP benefits get that same raise, so that you don't lose benefits when that happens. That needs to happen. We need to get a bill. I just tweeted about that. We need to get a bill like that um, in Congress and passed. And I'd also like to see SNAP benefits have a higher eligibility, have that bumped up, because that hasn't been bumped up with inflation either. So we need to have a couple things there. I like that a lot of people got help with student loan forgiveness, or I'm sorry, that's well, student loan forgiveness has happened as well. Not, there has been, it's like $18 billion of student loan forgiveness, but the payment pause over the last several years since 2020, that's helped out a lot of people. But eventually, people are going to have to start paying, and there could be that student loan forgiveness of maybe $10,000 that will help a lot of people as well. Really, still a lot of different things on the horizon, and I'll keep you up to date here with everything. And hopefully, another federal stimulus check. We're seeing all these state stimulus checks here as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts here. I'll keep you up to date here with everything. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to subscribe down below. Click the subscribe button if you haven't yet. It's completely free to do so. After subscribing, click the bell icon next to the subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as we go live. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see my new video I just did on Social Security raises. If you haven't seen that, click on that video next. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.